We'll be starting off this build by taking out the motherboard, which is the main component that pretty much makes every other component communicate with each other. The motherboard I chose was the ASUS ROG Strix B550-F Gaming Wi-Fi 2 for a couple of reasons. One, the pink accents on the black motherboard were perfect for my black pink build that I was going for, and two, its Wi-Fi capabilities. There aren't any Ethernet ports in the section of the house that I'm in, so I needed something that had Wi-Fi if I wanted to get literally anything done. Once I got everything out of the box, I ran into my first of many issues, which was getting the darn thing out of the plastic. A corner of it got stuck while I was taking it out, and my already high anxiety went higher than a hipster on 420. But once I managed to calm down and get it out, I was able to place the motherboard on the box it came in, which is highly recommended because that really just decreases the chance of static ruining everything that you care about and making you cry in a corner. Next, it was time for the CPU. I went with the AMD Ryzen 7 5800X, and I was very worried about handling it because of all the tiny pins that I needed to avoid bending, but luckily it kind of just plopped right into its spot without really any issue. It was like ever so slightly off, and then I slightly nudged it and it just went right in there. So that was great. Throughout a lot of my PC build, well, at least the first part of it, the things that I was mostly worried about didn't really end up being an issue. For the RAM, I went with the Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro with a total of 64 gigs. Did I need that much? Probably not, but they were at the store and I had a gift card and I said, might as well fill all 4 of the slots. So that's what ended up happening. Every build video I saw said that you needed to apply more pressure than you think in order to get the RAM into its slots, and I would see people struggling to push it in, which worried me a lot. But I guess because I'm a massage therapist, my hands are quite strong because they kind of just went in without any problems. And I am gonna be grateful for that. For storage, I grabbed the Samsung 980 Pro M.2 SSD with 2 terabytes of storage. Between all the games that I plan on playing and all the editing I plan on doing, this amount of space was honestly required, and I definitely still need more. And this is kind of where I came through my first issue, which was not something I thought that I would have a problem with, which was screwing everything in. I managed to not get things lined up into their holes properly, so I had to unscrew and rescrew, but I eventually got it in there. And then I was able to move on to the next part of the build. Quick freeze frame. So if you plan on using the same components that I'm using for my build, I recommend not putting this CPU cooler in until the motherboard is in the case. This cooler is fantastically chunky and makes it really hard to screw the motherboard into the case, and a lot of the videos that I had seen before had people putting the cooler on before they put the motherboard in the case, but that was definitely not the way to go for this. So definitely don't do what I'm doing and just wait for a little bit. But for the CPU cooler, I went with the Noctua NH-U12A for a couple of reasons. One, it is one of the quietest CPU air coolers on the market, and two, AIO scared me. The thought of any liquid in my PC that I was spending close to $2,000 on gave me too much anxiety. I know the possibility of an AIO leaking is very low, but I didn't want to stress about even a 1% chance. So I'm not going to go into how long it took me to get this cooler on, but it was a while. I couldn't get the fans back into the cooler itself. Screwing things in was again an issue, and videos I looked up weren't helpful, but eventually I managed to figure it out. I managed to figure out how to get the fans onto the whole center tower essentially of this cooler. So be patient, follow videos, you'll probably have a better time, an easier time than I did. It is time for the star of the build, which was the case. Once I decided I wanted to go for a black and pink setup, I went on Google to look up different pink PC cases, and this Nezuko case from ASUS was one of the first cases that popped up, and I immediately fell in love with it. It includes Nezuko's bamboo muzzle on the front. The side panel has cutouts meant to match her kimono pattern. There is a Nezuko silhouette on the top filter and with her name on it, and there's some beautiful like pink kanji on the back. So if you are an absolute weeb and love Demon Slayer like I do, this case is very recommended. Next was to put the motherboard in, which was the moment I realized I made a horrible mistake with the CPU cooler. Because our lovely CPU fan sticks out so much, it was hard to reach about half the screws on the motherboard to get it to the case, mostly just because I couldn't fit my hand in to get the screws into the holes for me to screw it in. So I did what I could and took a quick trip to Best Buy to get the iFixit Essentials electronic tool kit. The screwdriver in that has a magnetized tip and is much thinner than the screwdriver that I was already using. So I was able to get the rest of the screws in and even secure the ones I had previously put in less than 3 minutes. So highly recommend picking this up for your PC build or literally any like magnetized screwdriver. And it's time for the most tedious part of the build, which was installing the fans. I'm using the Corsair LL120 dual light loop fans. The double loop I feel helps give the RGB a little extra depth. I did run into some issues with the top exhaust fans because the cord from the Noctua kept coming in contact with the fan blades, but with some fiddling I managed to get them away from the fans. The other issue was that I wasn't able to install a back exhaust fan because it was too thick and was pressing on the motherboard. So since my Noctua has 2 fans setting air to the back of the case anyway, I decided to just leave the spot open and deal with the somewhat positive pressure in the case, because positive pressure is better than negative pressure. And so I just continued my screwing journey with the rest of the fans, giggity, and then ran into a different issue. There isn't enough fan headers on the motherboard for all of my fans, and Best Buy had actually closed by this point, so I had to wait till the next morning to pick up a fan hub. And since I couldn't finish the build today, I just did what I could, and so I figured I'll just put in the front panel connectors for the case and the motherboard, and as well as the GPU. So that all I had to worry about the next day were the fans and the PSU. For my GPU, I got the MSI GeForce RTX 3060 Ventus 3X. A lot of these names are really long. This was actually the first PC component I got, and I'm just very happy that I finally got to, put it into the case. Again, my strong massage therapy hands came in clutch, and I was able to get it into place without much difficulty. Fast forwarding to the next day, as soon as Best Buy was open, I made my boyfriend bring me there so that I could get the Corsair Commander Core fan hub. I had already gathered all the fan cords the night before, so all I had to do was plug them into the hub and stick the hub onto the case, which was pretty easy because, well, 2 reasons. One, the hub is magnetic, and also it came with like a little command strip to really make sure it stayed onto the case. And finally, we reached the PSU. I got the Corsair RM850X, which is probably more power than I needed, but with all the things that I have to plug in for streaming, I figured I might as well get some extra juice in there, A lot of the videos I saw of PC builds, people were getting custom cables and just spending extra for that, and I didn't really feel a need for that until I saw the default cables in real life, and oh my goodness, they are ugly as sin. So needless to say, I purchased some custom cables to match my build. I didn't have them at the time of filming, but I will show you when I have the complete PC build, when I had that installed. So after finding the cords I needed, which was easy because they were labeled, I got to work putting them in. Unfortunately, the motherboard cable was a little too slim thick and knocked out the rubber divider that I had put it through, but after some finagling, I was able to get it back into place, more or less. You can't really see it, and if you can't see it, it's not a problem. And then for the CPU cable, I actually had to remove one of the top exhaust fans in order to get the cable into the motherboard, but it was pretty easy. I was able to get the fan back in, and there wasn't really any issues. And now it was time for the final test to make sure that I did not screw up everything over the hours of putting it together. Okay. It's time for the moment of truth. Did I do things correctly? Oh gosh, I'm so scared. Okay. So the motherboard's in correctly. Is that like standby? Interesting. All right. It did it! Oh, because the RAM is going off of, because the Noctua is so close to the RAM, it's almost like it does have RGB in it. Oh, that's so cool! Okay, okay. Now then. Source. It did it! It did it! I did it! Fuck yeah! Okay, let's turn you off now. Thankfully, everything worked. Oh my goodness, that was so stressful. But now it's time for cable management, which wasn't really that bad. After putting the whole PC together, cable management was honestly the least of my concerns and was very fast. The motherboard came with zip ties, so it was easy to really gather everything together and create a nice little pathway. And all of the panels were put on with no issue. And here is some mediocre ASMR for your ears. And here is the beautiful top filter with the Nezuko silhouette and her name, which is also magnetic, so it just stays right on place once you put it on top of your PC.